I recently had a client ask me to do facial thumbnails of about 300 individuals based on photographs that they provided me. Now, anybody that's been asked to do something like this before knows that it's a little bit difficult to write an action to do it for you because faces will appear in different locations within the photograph, so isolating the face is somewhat difficult. But I figured out a way to do it. So first I'm going to show you the action run, and then I'll show you how I did it. So I have crop on face here, and this crops and resizes to a 300 by 300 pixel face shot based on the individual and where they happen to be. And the third one here. Okay, so let me revert those and I'll show you how the action script works. To do that, I'm going to make a copy of this image. I'm going to make changes to the face, and I'm going to compare the two images and isolate the changes to the face. And I'm going to use that to then make my crop. So let's start by making a new action. I'll go through that, and let's just call this one crop to face and save record. Okay, so like I said, the first thing we're going to do is make a copy of this. So now I've got two copies, and the top layer here is selected. And then to make changes to the face, the easiest way I've found is to use Liquify within Photoshop. It's relatively new, but if you have a more recent copy of Photoshop, it should be there. And the beauty of that is within Liquify, there is the ability to, it has smart features that allow you to make edits to the faces. So we're going to come in here and we're going to morph this poor individual's face into a almost cartoon and clown-like look. And what it looks like doesn't really matter as long as you are making changes throughout the face so that we can use that to isolate and make further changes to everything else within the photo. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change some of these. My chin wants to go down, this is up, and like something like that. And the actual numbers don't matter too much as long as we're actually just making changes, and then we can get something that contrasts. So now we've got this contrasting image, and now we need to find the difference. Within blending options over here is the ability to isolate difference. And as you can see, the rest of the photograph, no changes were made, but only changes were here. And so now we've got that, and we can isolate that. So I'm going to select both of these layers here, and I'm going to duplicate them again, and I'm going to merge into one layer, and then I'm going to use hue and saturation to change the saturation down, and then I'm going to use levels to bump up the contrast quite a bit here. So now we've got a very bright white on a dark black background. And now I'm going to select this black background and I'm going to get rid of it. So to do that, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that black is my foreground color. So I'm going to reset that by clicking on the little icon there. And just in case I have something else selected at a previous before using this action. So now that that's selected, I'm going to come in and use color range, and I'm going to select from the sample color, which is the black. I'm going to use that. It's going to select, and 130 is probably fine, 100 is probably fine, anything in there, but it's basically going to isolate just the black background, select that. Now I'm going to delete that. Now you can see that it went here. There's still black showing up, but that's because the difference layer is still set on right there. But we have isolated basically just this white piece here. Now this is to scale here around the face. I want to make sure that I have a little bit of padding around the outside of the face. So I'm going to scale this white piece up a little bit. And because we're using this to crop, I'm going to just basically make that a little bit bigger. So hitting Command T or Control T, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to bump with the ratio chain. I'm going to change it to 120 by 120. You can do 125, 125. Depends on how far out you want to go from the face. But I just want to go a little bit out, so I'm changing it to 120. And then hit enter, and now we've got a slightly bigger version of that. So now that we've got that, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do image and trim. And this is going to trim to all the outside edges of this white selection. So it's going to go to the farthest white pixel that we got, and it's going to trim them from that. So it's going to crop. So now we've got it cropped here, and this is great. This is what we need. The next thing we need to do is determine how big we want this image to be. Since my particular client wanted everything to be 300 pixels by 300 pixels in a square, I need to then basically make this a 300 pixel by 300 pixel square. Now we've cropped it so I can't re-garnish images there, so I have to work from the short edge, not the long edge. And to do that, I just basically need to figure out whether this is a landscape picture or a portrait picture, and this could change depending on your photograph and what's selected. So we need to basically do a conditional to determine what it is first, and then set the height or the width based on that. So once again, it's called a conditional, and you can do that by coming in here and you can do insert conditional. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us, Photoshop is going to come in here and it's going to look at certain factors and do something accordingly. Now the very top one is document is landscape, which is what we need. So it says, hey, if this document is landscape, then run this action. Now I've already written these actions because of the previous one, but all they really are is image sizes and isolating either the height or the width. So in this particular case it says, hey, if this document is landscape, then that means that the height is the short edge and we need to trim, or we need to scale, because we're not trimming, we're scaling. If we need to scale based on the height. And so I say, okay, great. So if the image is landscape, then we need to make sure that our height is set to 300. And then it says, but if it's not, if it's portrait, then we need to make sure that this edge right here is set to 300. So the width is set to 300. And we say, okay. Now it doesn't make any change. You can't see that. And it's because it doesn't run that action while you're recording it. So you have to stop, make sure that that piece, the if is selected there, hit play, and it will run it. And then you select the if again, and you start to record again. So now we're at that, and we know that this width is 300. Now we need it to be a square and cropped. So the next thing we want to do then is set our canvas size. So we got image, canvas size, and you can come in here and you can see we set it to pixels, we got 300 and we got 358. So now we were going to go that and we're going to change that to 300. So now if we proceed, it's now cropped at 300 by 300. And this is basically it. We've now got everything what we need it to do. Now all we really need to do is get rid of this top layer, drag it to the trash, drag this one to the trash, and then there's our image. If you wanted to do something like save and close, with, you can do those type of things, but the basic action is this right here, and that's all we really need. So let me run through this really quick just so you can see what's happening here. And this is just an image size, which is image size. And then if you change this one, like say I changed this one to 200, then and say okay, since I changed that one dimension, it's going to come in here and it's going to basically do just the width, not the height, and that's the only factor it's going to decide. So that's why this one's set to 300 W, is because I have it set to 300 width. And then I made another one that's based for whether or not it's portrait, and then that one's set to 300 height. And that's all those two things do. They're not too complicated. So we have our little action here, and we can come in and we can test it on other images. So let's go ahead and run it. And it's going to pop through the different steps, and it seems to work there. And let's check it here again and see. And sure enough, crops it there on the particular images in the face. So that's all we really need now. And once that's done, you could come in here and you could run a file, automate batch, and you could choose your folder and make sure you have this selected. And if you record your own save-ins there, you do that. Otherwise, you could basically do a save and close or a folder destination, and then choose. And of course, you want to save where the top of your image is, and then you can do things like, and you can have your saving actions over here. But yes, that's it. Hope it works for you. I will leave a copy of this in the, which is basically these 3 little actions, and you need to run the top one. I will leave that in the link below. Thanks.